There's no filter.
Born to be wild. Oh shoot, we're live. Well, everybody just got a little taste of Alexa's singing. I mean, it's pretty good. Sometimes I really think I should actually quit my job and become a singer.
No,
No?
no, I need you as my CEO. We make more money with you as CEO than singer. Sorry. No offense.
Fine. Fine. I was like all for it, but well, good morning, everybody. Today, Debbie and I, Miss Debbie Shrouded, I have so much fun. Well, like we had like a love fest yesterday in our text message chain because I was like, you know what it is? It's like it is really, and this is actually part of what we're going to talk about because today we're going to talk about as an entrepreneur, scaling your business is the next step, right? You start a business and you grow it, and then the next part is how do you know when to scale? But it's important to understand when, like, you have to know when you're ready to scale because sometimes, and we saw this firsthand with our agency, when we scaled it too quickly, we left kind of a lot of carnage on the road unintentionally because we were scaling too quickly. I mean, anytime you do $1 million in, what was it, like 47 days, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like scrambling to get resources and to figure it out, but you're not going to turn money away. And so you have to know when you're ready to scale. I would say, you know, for us, at this point, it was like business 12 or 13. So for me, like, I'm like, all right, we could figure this out. I'm not worried about it. But for most people that've never scaled a business before, I always say, look, like, it's not hard to make six figures. You just need to find the offer and you need to build the skills. And once you have that, then you can keep scaling. I mean, look at some of our clients like Elizabeth and Mario and some of these people that are really scaling their businesses like crazy. And it's because they did take their time. Like I kept pushing Elizabeth. I'm like $22 million. And she ended up quadrupling her business. And now that she wrote me yesterday, she goes, 2023, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do $1 million. She's like, I feel it. You know, I think she hit like 600K last year, which was pretty amazing considering she came to us about 12 months prior and only did, I think, 130,000. So for her to go from 130,000 to 600K, so she 4X'd her business in only less than a year. That's pretty amazing. And now she's like $1 million. I'm doing it, right? And so I think that the most important thing is to understand when you're ready to do that. Like she wasn't ready to do that yet. She had steps she wanted to do. And I think it's important because you have to learn if you're in a 9 to 5 or you just left your 9 to 5 and you're going into a business, just because you're a social media expert and you have that skill doesn't mean you know how to run a company. It is very different. You say this all the time, Deb.
All the time. And it's sort of a mirage. We think because we have an expertise, you know, that we can make money off of it. And we can, but that doesn't mean that the business is going to succeed and be set up right. So this is why we're here. Literally, this is what think tank coaching is about. They come into the think tank. We act as strategic advisors. We can see the potholes and the cliffs that people are about to fall off of before they fall off of them. And so, you know, we're able to kind of hopefully divert their path so that they do it the right way. Because the other thing is you can get real discouraged if you give it a go and you're grinding it, but you're not doing the right things and then you're not getting the result. You know, I love our kind of unofficial tagline of no entrepreneur left behind. Because like we don't want people to give up on their dream, but at the same time, sometimes the dream can eat you alive. Like it turns into a nightmare if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why we came up with that tagline is because entrepreneurship is hard. We all know that. Like we don't have to state the obvious, but the most important thing when you're building a business is to understand you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You need a team. You need people around you because there's going to be times where. So like yesterday, I had a situation that happened, and I kind of, you know about it, Deb, after the fact. But in the heat of the moment, I'm like, all right, like I can't just call my coach out of the blue. And I'm like, I need to talk to somebody about this. Like I need to get it off my chest. It's really bothering me. Mm-hmm. It's on an account that we're working really hard on, and they're being a little difficult about, you know, a single thing and not seeing the bigger picture. And so I went for a walk, and I happened to run into my wife, who was also on a walk. And my wife's an entrepreneur too. And I just let it all out. I'm like, babe, blah, you know. And after I did, and I like vented, and she just kind of listened and gave me a little like insight of perspective. Like I felt so much better. And so it's like, to me, I think it's levels of support in different ways. It's level of support for skill building. It's a level of support for strategy and tactics. But sometimes it's also just mindset and emotional.
Yeah. People listen, it can be a lonely journey, especially because a lot of people are solopreneurs and they may have, a team, but it may be virtual and maybe fairly contractual, which means you're not really kind of in like a daily relationship with that team member. So doesn't feel like, it still feels like you're alone sometimes. And, partnerships are hard, right? And so there's a lot of people that don't set themselves up that way. And I think you're right. I think we provide a lot of that. And, the other thing that's really nice, and Alexa, this is one of the things you're really good about, is the transparency of like sharing that you've been through this and sharing what you've been through. So people are like, oh, it's not just me. Like, okay, somebody's been through this. They got through it. They can show me the way. And it's just, I play with words all the time. It's like the word encouraging, to encourage somebody. I know this isn't the epistemology of the word, but like encourage, like en means with in certain languages. So it's like, it's almost like lending courage. Like, let me lend you some courage because I'm ahead of you on the path. I can look back and see the nightmare you're looking at or the thing that's scaring you. And I know that you can get through that or past that or over it or around it. I'll help you see how. And we lend a lot of courage. We let people borrow courage. And I think that's critical when you're a new entrepreneur. You just have to have people around you. And a lot of times family members don't get it. You happen to be married to an entrepreneur. So, you two can really collaborate and commiserate and do all the things that, as life partners that you do. But at the same time, a lot of people's spouses aren't that, right? Like, and so they don't necessarily get it. So they're kind of like,
yeah, I mean, in that, I do definitely have a little bit of an advantage. I will say that my wife is an entrepreneur and, and whatnot. So that definitely does help that I have that, but they don't necessarily have to get it and be an entrepreneur.
True.
They have to just have support, right?
Right.
And so we've had people in our coaching program where they have zero support from their spouse, and that's a problem. And to me, that's a sign you're not ready to scale, because I got news for you. Running a 5-figure business and running a multi-6-figure business is a totally different animal. And forget about 7 and 8 figures, right? It's being an entrepreneur, especially as you're building the first year. I remember having this conversation with my wife. She's like, you're working so much. I'm like, I'm building a business. And she backed off. She's like, I understand, I'm supportive. And so she would watch Maddie a little extra. There's so many mornings where I'd be like, babe, at 6:30, I need to jump on now. Like, and she'd be like, all right, I got Maddie, go. And so she was very supportive. Now that support has a little bit of a rope, right? And it got to the point where she's like, you've got to get to the point where you bring somebody else in, aka Debbie Shannon, that takes things off your plate so that you can actually have work-life balance. And we got to that point, and where I would say the last 3 months, I've had more work-life balance than I've had in years, because I brought Debbie in. But in the beginning, it was grind. I couldn't afford Debbie like 12 months ago, right?
I can't picture how you were doing all this, honestly. I can't even imagine.
It was a lot. And to be honest, other people that were involved had no respect for the amount of work I was doing, and I wasn't even paying myself. And I think and it goes to another sign of, are you ready to scale? Is what's your frustration level? Because my frustration level was through the roof for multiple reasons. Didn't have the right people, didn't have the right partners. I had no appreciation of the amount of time and effort that I was putting in. I felt, honestly, besides Tanya, I was in it by myself.
Yeah.
And and Debbie writes me at like 10 p.m. at night being like, hey, I found this. Hey, I found that. Like, nobody else was doing that. I was the only one that I felt like cared. And, and honestly, if we would have scaled, like, pretty much Debbie started in, like, I would say, you officially came on board in October?
Yeah, something like that. More
something like that. And within 30 days, what did we do? Like 600K in a week?
Yeah.
Like we did, and we literally 10x our business in December and January, and we could not have handled that scale if I didn't put Debbie in this position, because it just wouldn't have worked. I wasn't even able to do strategy work before Debbie because I was too busy running the business and the operation. So
Yeah.
bringing Debbie in, which by the way happens to be a fantastic strategist herself, we're figuring out, is, what allowed us to scale.
Yeah.
But we would not have been able to take on those new clients if we didn't do the steps before.
Well, one of the things to look for, and this is what I think you found with me, and this is what anybody I've worked with has found with me, is that what you want are people that come in and are consumed the same way by the mission, that they are completely like, this mission is now my mission, and it's no different for me than it is for you. It's a little different because I hadn't found it, but the point is, to me, it's mine. It's like, there is no distinction between how I look at the mission and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish and how we're doing it than you would. I feel complete ownership of it, complete responsibility over it in the execution of my role in the company. So I look at it from an owner lens. So that's why you'll see me at 10 o'clock at night or whatever saying, hey, did you notice this? Or what about this? And is anybody doing this? And what about this client? They submitted this, or is somebody checking on it? Because to me, it's my name is on it. So what you want to look for that, like if you are scaling or you're bringing team in, even if it's just a part-time VA, really cast a vision that enrolls them in what you're out to create and treat it as if, look, we're on a mission adventure together. And yeah, you're not necessarily walking through the jungle with me every day, all day. But when you are with me, like I see you as like we're all locked arms marching toward the same mission. That to me is the best way to align it, because personalities are going to sometimes clash. You've got different styles of operating pace clashing and all that stuff. But in the end, if you can rally around the mission, that can sometimes pull even the most, I don't want to say disconnected, but less connected teams through and keep everybody going forward. So rally around.
I mean, it's important. I remember talking to my business coach over the summer, and I was so frustrated. I'm like, why don't my partners care as much as me? And he kind of laughed. He goes, you're fooling yourself if you think anyone's going to care as much as you. And now, honestly, I disagree. I completely disagree. I look at some of our staff members, they care just as much as we do.
Yeah.
Like, and I was talking to Meg this morning, one of our content writers who's just phenomenal. And I just said, hey, I just want to let you know you're doing a good job. Because we have a phenomenal talent who is in another part of the country, and he has a family. He has 3 kids, so he can only work to certain hours of ours. And it's hard on her. She's like getting up 4, 5, 6 in the morning. And I didn't ask her to do that, by the way, to work with him. And I told her I'm gonna try to find other talent as well that's more in U.S. time, but the guy's phenomenal. And so I said, see what you could do to make it work. And she's doing things I'm not even asking her for because she cares so much.
Right.
And that's the type of people you want. And I feel like we finally are at the point where we have such a good team. Like we have people that care. They don't have self-interest. And guess what? It's like, I don't have self-interest either. I didn't even pay myself until Debbie started yelling at me and paying me in December. Clearly, I have no self-interest. And you want people like that are in it to build the mission, that are in it and see where you're going. And, that's one sign you are ready. Like right now, we are ready to scale. We have done no advertising. We've done no lead generation on our agency side because we just weren't ready for it. We had more people come to us, more business than we could handle. And we said, let's wait until we're ready to really scale. And now we're ready, right? But it took months of cleaning things up and stupid things like cleaning our QuickBooks and our cash flow. And it's been the last 90 days, it is like night and day where we are now from where we were 90 days ago.
This is why, this is shameless plug here, but this is why you want to work with us, because trying to do that on your own and figure that out and maybe getting it wrong and not knowing what the right next step is, how to make that next step. Like one of our clients is working on building out their team. And it's like, we're stepping them through like how to approach that, what to look for, what to ask of that role, how to interview, how to vet, all that stuff, because you can go and do it on, it's not to say you can't do it on your own. And yeah, you can YouTube the shit out of anything. And you do it wrong and you lose 6 months, maybe at least, if not money included, because now you've lost opportunities or you've built in the wrong direction or it falls apart or the person drains you of resources, and it can go wrong 100 different ways. And this is why you said don't do it alone. It's also why you're a master coach and you've coached a lot of and scaled a lot of businesses, and you still have a coach, like for the same reason, because how we're going to operate when we're at that next level is going to be different than how we're operating now. So we're just, we're set up to scale, and there will come a point in which we will have to take stock again and look at it and go, wait a second now. Okay, wait, we're going to get what account? Okay, wait, we got to build out for that account. Like I'm excited for that day. Like I can't wait. Like it's not fear. It's just like, we know that we will have to address it at that time, and we know we can. So we're surrounded by good talent.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say first step is, it's probably not even the first step. We kind of skip probably the step 3 or 4 of knowing if you want to scale. But anyway, we kind of got into it. But I would say one of the signs that you're ready to scale is you feel good about the team you have around you.
Yeah.
And that's at every level, right? So if you're in the 5-figure range, you probably maybe have yourself and one other person, maybe nobody, right? So this might not be applicable to you, but if you're in the 6-figure range and you have 1 to 3 people, that's when you know that you're ready to scale. Like I know, going back to Elizabeth's example, she had to remove several people and add new people to feel confident in scaling, right? She's now confident in her brand, she's confident in her offer, she's confident in her people, which means check, all right, let's get to that 7-figure mark, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure you feel comfortable with, and it's not just internal, but it's external. You have to make sure that we talk a lot about the people around your table. Like I have people around my table right now that I know that I can tackle any problem. And it's not just my business coach, but I also look at my other business partners. I mean, we have incredible business partners that have built billion-dollar brands. And I mean, they're incredible, where I know I can call them if I ever run into any issues, which I have, and they guide me. And so it's important. So between my family members and the people on my team, my coaches, the people that are in my inner circle, I feel good. I feel we could build this multi-8-figure company over the next 24 months. And I feel good about it now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like there was definitely a time when I first came in that was like, okay, I can see that we're not, and we talked about it. There were clients that we didn't bring on because we didn't feel like, we were ready to service them at the level that we require of ourselves. And so, and that's not easy to do, but that kind of discipline is what's required. In the beginning, in the early days for entrepreneurs, it's like a take all comers mentality. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But that's when you're operating at a smaller scale. And a lot of entrepreneurs miss the signpost that you're not ready for this, that you're not set up, and you're going to take on maybe this opportunity and it's going to consume you, and service deliveries might, your levels of service delivery might suffer. You might suffer, your team might suffer. So you really do have to make sure. And that's one of the things you're great about. You right away recognize when it's like, it's time to add more resource to this opportunity. And one of the reasons I think we do instill the kind of loyalty we do when we find the right people who kind of align with how we operate is that you're really great about not just casting the vision and enrolling them in what's possible, but you create that, my saying, the rising tide that lifts all boats. You're very clear that, hey, we win together, we lose together, it's all together. So there is a benefit. They see that the opportunity is there for them to grow, whether it's in opportunities with us, bonuses, income, whatever it is, whatever the opportunity, incentives. And we're really committed to that. And I think the team knows that. And so, yeah, they're loyal to us, but part of it is because we're loyal to them. So it's a reciprocated arrangement for sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest. I was not always loyal to my team, individual people. I'm loyal to my team because they're phenomenal.
Right.
They work hard. They care about where we're going. But part of scaling and understanding if you lead, because scaling too early can lead very quickly to problems. And it happened in our business where we scaled so quickly, we needed talent very quickly, and we hired the wrong people, right? But also scaling too late, you can miss opportunities. So you have to find the balance between the two. So we talked about, like, is the team ready? Like for us, our team is ready, we're ready to go. So that's one of the most important things. The other thing is, do you have a proven business model? So before you can scale, you've got to test your business model. We talk about marketing by modification all the time and testing your offers. Sometimes, unfortunately, what I see is I'll see people And you tell this story of one of your former clients, Debbie, that did this, that built a whole warehouse before even knowing. Like with Mighty like we went all in, but first, what did we do? We had prototypes. We went to a show. After the feedback from the show, we were like, we're all in because of the feedback, right? So it's really important. You can't just go all in on something. And it's like with Think Tank, I did the same thing. I didn't even have a landing page. I had nothing, and I started selling it. And within 30 days, I had 21 people in my program. And I was charging, at that point, I started at 2,500, then went to 42, then went to 6,800. Like pretty quickly, every 2 people I increased, and now we're at like 50,000. But, I slowly increased once we had credibility. And once I'm like, oh man, people really want this, and they want to learn from me. At the time, it was just me. I went all in, and then I built out my assets and whatnot. But sometimes people will pour so much money into a business without even knowing if they have a proven business model. Like the whole theory, build it and they will come. And this is why higher ed, this is the biggest problem why I love our RIT project, because they get it. They're like, let's test out things first before we go build a whole program. And this is why higher ed gets into trouble. They build a whole program not knowing. They'll do market research in 2020, and then by the time it launches, it's 2023, and by the time they have their first class, it's 2024. It's a completely different market now. And that's the problem with higher ed right now. And what I've seen being in it as a chief and a VP. And, and that's why entrepreneurs can be a little bit more nimble and flexible and pivot quicker. But you got to make sure you have a proven business model. Like, that's the first thing.
Yeah. And using them as an example, I mean, like this is its own entity that they've developed to work directly with workforce development in their community. So they are lockstep with employers in their region and in the US that need the skills they're teaching. So like they're literally creating product market fit before they ever even create a product, because they have the employer's voice at the table. So they're building curriculum, not to get off on a tangent with them, but like that's one way to make sure that you know who your target audience is and what their needs are, and getting proof of concept before you invest heavily. And then the footnote to that is also, is what you're creating actually scalable? Can you scale it? And is it in line with what you're trying to create for yourself? When I left Disney and kind of went more into the entrepreneurial world and got involved, we had our own business and our own startup in the family that my husband and I created. But I also had my own business on the side. I had a custom stationery design company just because I'm a freak for paper products. I'm the daughter of a printer, so I love anything like that. But the point of it is, I knew right away, oh, this business model I've created is not scalable because it was all custom. So I'm the printer, so to speak. Like they pick the design out of my catalog, and then I deliver a custom product. And in order for me to scale that, it was going to mean outsourcing the manufacturing portion of it, which is an investment, which is fine. But I knew that I didn't want it to outgrow my capacity for the stage of life I was in. So I was very deliberate about that. So you have to know whether what business you're in is scalable, if the product is scalable. If you're a service provider, consultant, a coach, a stylist of any kind, even like Elizabeth, she can't scale Elizabeth. So she has to build the team around her that is like a cloning of Elizabeth. So Elizabeth drives the vision, the idea, the strategy, but it can be executed by others. And that's a challenge for coaches and consultants. We know how to do it, but it's something that if you're not paying attention, it can get away from you.
Or it's your first time, right? And so that's why having a clear plan to scale is important. So if you actually asked us the other day, you said, if we took on another 10 accounts, do we need more people? And so like we're starting to ask the right questions. And in the past, we've been a little bit reactive where our team's like overloaded and we're like, all right, we need more people. So now we've learned, okay, we've got to kind of make sure we have the right set of resources before we start scaling. Because unfortunately, the negative is if you scale too quickly, you can overextend your resources. And that's a really important thing. And overextend your resources could be finances, but staff. And it means that you can get poor quality results in your services, and it could lower employee morale, and it could decline customer satisfaction, which defeats the purpose of scaling, right? Yeah. So, and sometimes, like for us, when we first started scaling our agency, we always had pretty high quality. The work we do now, like completely trumps what we did 12 months ago now, because we're humming. But I would say, you know, there was a point in time where we were totally overextending our resources. And we kind of knew that was going to happen in a way. And so that's why we started to overstaff. So you have to understand that, like, this is why this is important. So when you're looking to scale, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan on how you're going to use your resources. You have to have a plan on specific goals and resources it will take and finances, and not just how to get there. Sometimes we worry so much about the marketing, how we're going to get there. Well, how are you actually going to manage the operations of your business?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when you're scaling, people don't realize we think of the revenue side, we think of the sales side, we think of the exponential nature of upselling a customer, lifetime value, and all that stuff. But to your point, you also have to scale resources and you have to deploy accordingly. And you won't recognize any economies of scale. It's called economies of scale. If you went to business school, you know, and it's the cost advantage that you get.
School, come on.
Well, it's real. It's the benefit you get when you grow and expand. So for example, like with your product companies, our product companies, like you can see the economies of scale in the materials, cost of labor, you know, and when you automate manufacturing, if you're hand creating, hand packaging, hand assembling versus automation, right? Those are the economies of scale that you get when you get big enough to be able to automate some of that stuff. But if you're a service provider where you are the product, you are the service, you are it.
Oh, you're bringing up a really good point here. Like you always say, and it's cute. Natasha, she goes, LOL, I don't remember much from school. That's funny.
We're here to help.
I don't either. I mean, I have 5 degrees and I don't remember anything. But so you bring up a good point, and you always say, like, Debbie always says this, and at first when she started saying it, like, because anybody that knows me knows I'm pretty like laid back, so I'm not like, you know, I hate being center of attention. And so when Debbie starts, she's like, I'm loyal to the CEO, like, and I'm like, what the hell does that mean? But as we started talking, you know, Debbie's smart. She's like, I could do this all on my own, but like, Alexa's a lead magnet. I don't know why you people like me, but you do. And she's like, so let me do what I'm good at and kind of in a positive way, bring our resources and our skills together to create something bigger than either of us can do by ourselves.
Right.
And the important piece with that, and this is an important piece you just brought up, is you have to have a strong brand and reputation. And I've worked a long time. I could not have scaled my company this quickly if I didn't already have a good brand. I've worked years. And mind you, back in 2007, when I started Black Rhino, which is our first agency, I built that whole brand up at 18 years old, basically knowing nothing. But then when I sold it in 2014 and entered higher ed, I let my personal brand go. And it actually ended up, so it's funny, in 2019, I started building up my personal brand again. And it wasn't, I kind of was like, all right, I'm probably going to go back into entrepreneurship. And so before I started Maris, I actually started my personal brand. So I'm like, I want to get back after Catterton Partners. I was like, right. I definitely want to get back into entrepreneurship. But then Maris was like, hey, we really need you to come. The guy, it took him 6 months. He literally convinced me to join him. He's like, I really need you. It was a really attractive offer. I was like, all right, and I told him, I'm like, you have no more than 3 years with me. And I was very honest with him. And so I ended up this is actually an interesting story. So for people that are in a 9-to-5, they might enjoy this story. So I told them, like, it was on my resume. I'm an entrepreneur. I've sold at that point. At that point, I had 5 exits. I'm like, I'm letting you know, I'm an entrepreneur. My brand's all over. Like, I have a consulting website. Like, I'm letting you know now. And he was like, oh, it's cool. It's fine. And then, so I was there for a couple of years, and somebody eventually, I never updated my LinkedIn, and somebody was like, oh, what's this, and this, and they went to HR on me. And so I'm like, dude, are you serious? I've like literally doubled your leads, I'm like a huge reason why you even made enrollment for the last 2 years. And I'm like, and you're going to knock me on a personal brand that I had before I even started here. And so it's interesting because a lot of people that you and I work with that are in 9 to 5 that are trying to transition out have that same issue of corporations not buying into people's branding. And
Yeah.
I have the complete opposite. Like, me having a strong personal brand helps your organization. Why would you alienate me for that or get mad at me for having a strong personal brand? Now, granted, my strategy was never to stay there. I always had the thought process I was going to be there maybe 2 to 3 years and then move on. And I was always very transparent about that. I always said, hey, I'm going to help you fix this. I'm going to help you recreate your marketing department. And then I'm out. Like, that's what I'm here to do. I get too bored too quickly. Like, I like being a fractional CMO where I go in, fix stuff, set you up, and leave. That's what I'm really good at, right? And this is what we do with all of our clients. When you look at some of the results that we're doing right now with Mighty Yum and all these other companies that we're working with, I mean, we're building 8, 9, 10-figure brands in a matter of months and a year. Like, it's insane what we're doing. That's fun for me, you know? So it's interesting to talk about how, you know, I was in corporate, started building my personal brand back before entering back into entrepreneurship. And it's easy to get comfortable. Like, I got super comfortable in higher ed. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. I get a paycheck. The paycheck's a lot less than I was making as an entrepreneur, but it's nice to have good health care. And that pissed me off so much. That was the push I actually needed to pretty much go like this and quit. I'm like, all right, fend for yourself. You know, and guess what? Now it's back to a boring brand. Like, you know, and the problem in higher ed and nonprofits, and you look at those industries, everybody's doing the same thing. It's like a what's it, a rat race or what's the term here?
They're on the hamster wheel. They're on the hamster wheel.
Yeah, they're on the hamster wheel. Like, they're doing the same thing. This is why I love this RIT project, is we're blowing it up. Like, we're literally blowing up the industry and doing something like more as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And it's amazing. And like, this is what my fear is in higher ed. It's going to be the same thing. It really is.
Well, and what they didn't recognize when you went back to higher ed was you were being an intrapreneur, because you were bringing all the things that made you great as an entrepreneur into their organization. And to me, that's one of the things, that's why I'm doing this work the way that I'm doing it now. And part of it is because you've coached me through it, is that I wanted to take what made me a great employee for some of the biggest brands in the world, and everything that I got involved with, we were able to hit our goals. So I'm called a chief operating officer, but I really think of myself as a chief optimizing officer. My job is to take everything we're doing and make it, maximize it, optimize it. And that's efficiencies, that's, you know, branding, that's all the things. But the point of it is, it's like, for people who are ready to make that leap from 9 to 5 and they're getting into the entrepreneurial world, the thing that makes you great as an employee can make you great as an entrepreneur, but you have to find the opportunities that make sense. And for me, one of the weird things about a fractional COO situation is, if you're really good at what you do, you can't have 100 clients. It's not going to make sense to have 100 clients, because you're literally going to come into their organization and own big chunks of it. And you can't just like spread yourself too thin. Now, if there's small entities that you can dip in once a week, that's one thing, but that's not what this is. And I had multiple clients, and, you know, over time I was like, I know which one has the opportunity to scale the quickest, the best, and really hit the marks. And it's Think. And I was like, they think like I do. They operate like I like to operate. The opportunity is a shit ton of fun for me, you know. So you have to know, this is the whole point. Are you really ready to scale? I had to figure out, what does scaling look like for me? So scaling for me is either I was going to take on a variety of clients, and they were going to come and they were going to go, and I was going to get them set up and get them rolling, and then, you know, kick them out the door and get the next one and get them rolling and kick them out the door. But you can't, there's only so much impact you can have inside that model. And impact is what gets me excited. So I was like, how do I have the most impact based on the skills I have? Well, I have to invest. I have to dive in, and I have to completely get into the deep end of the pool with that client. And every time I've done that, I end up partnered up with that client. That's just how it's worked. And like the last quote unquote job I had, I was very much an entrepreneur. They had one product. And in the 3 years I was there, we went from one product and no brand to 2 product lines with 20 items in them, and we were in 15 countries and one of the rock stars online. And so I love that. That's what I love, is optimizing the opportunity. But I'm pretty good at picking good opportunities. And it doesn't, we're live. So I was going to say, my tagline.
I've already cursed like 4 times.
Yeah, but I was going to say everything I touch grows, but that sounds a little weird. So it's like,
yeah, let's not say that.
oh,
Your
now
camera fell too.
My camera,
even your camera didn't agree
my
with
camera
you.
didn't even like that. Oh my God.
Oh, that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad.
Well, you know, so that's what happens. What can I say? Here I am.
Now you're beat red. Yeah, you probably should have kept that one to yourself.
I told you. You said say it anyway. I'm blushing, but it's like, it's true. Like I know where I can have it. I know where
see, all of our students will tell you, like, we're nuts. Like, this
we
is
have
like
a good
what
time.
our calls are like.
We have
This
a good
is literally
time.
what our calls are like.
If you can't have fun and you're going to spend these many hours of your life doing this, and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong, or you're doing the wrong things. That's how I see it. So
Natasha, she goes, my daughter's asking me why I'm laughing. Natasha, you should know you never have your kids around us.
That's right. Just say you heard a funny tagline. It's just a funny tagline. You can say.
That's awesome. So, you know, guys, look, I mean, we're going to wrap this up. The thing is look, scaling is fun, but you got to also say, like, what's my goal? Like, some of you just want to make 50K. Some of you want to make 150K. Some of you want to make millions. First, you have to kind of take a step back. Running a multi-million-dollar company is a lot of work. You're in a whole other ballpark because now you're dealing with people, right? Going from 0 to 6 figures, you're dealing with learning skills. You're pretty much, it's you, yourself, and you've got to learn skills to actually perform the fulfillment, but you also have to learn skills to run a business. And maybe you have a VA, you know, to help you, but it's basically you, right? Where once you start hitting the multi-6 figures, it's now not just you know, processes that you're starting, right? It's also people, and people are complicated.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't always love managing people. I never felt I was a really good boss because I'm almost too results driven. As I've gotten older, I've gotten better. You know, you can argue, because I've had quite a few people that have stuck with me from job to job, and I've brought them along for the ride. So you can argue maybe I wasn't a terrible boss, but you know, I think for me, it's been an evolution of me as a leader to get better and better. But you have to really figure out, what do you want? Because running a multi-7-figure business is not easy, and you have a lot of challenges, and you have to be willing to get that challenge, or you know, be up for that challenge, I should say. So, I mean, first, you know, I'll just recap. If you're looking to scale your business, first off, you've got to make sure you have a proven model, right? That's the number one thing you have to make sure you have. You have to make sure you have a clear plan. You have to make sure your team is ready for this. You also, we didn't really talk too much about this, but you have to make sure you have the financial resources too. So that's really important. And like 6 months ago, we didn't have the financial resources. We had like, what was it, like $180,000 of unpaid invoices, and it was just a disaster. I had to put money into our business in September to cover the bills, which I did get myself paid back, luckily. But, you know, there's a lot of things that were wrong with our cash flow. We couldn't scale. We didn't have the cash to scale. I couldn't get more resources if I wanted. Now, since then, we've cleaned all that up, but it's a perfect example. And this happens in businesses, guys. It doesn't mean you're bad at running a business or not. But, you know, it's part of running a business. You're going to have ups and downs. And unfortunately, we had like 3 people not pay at the same time, and it caused a big backlog, which Debbie, what do we want to call you?
The iron fist and the velvet glove.
The hammer. Debbie the hammer collected a majority of that, which the last 50K said March they're going to pay us, but we'll see. But she collected like 75% of it because she's a hammer. But you know, you have to make sure you have the financial resources. You have to make sure you have a strong brand and a reputation. That takes time to build up. You can't expect that overnight you're going to have $1 million brand. It takes time to build up. You have to learn. It takes time to learn skills, and it takes time to build a brand. And at different levels, there's different skills. Like 0 to 6, you're working on fulfillment skills. You're working on basic business skills. You're learning lead gen skills, basic marketing skills, storytelling. Like those are the skills you're learning. When you get to 6 figures, it's how do I automate and build processes now to be able to scale this thing. Once you get to 7, it's people, which is a whole other animal, right? So you have to understand it takes time to build skills. It takes time to learn these things. It takes time to make mistakes and to learn from them. I still make mistakes, like all the time. And you have to make sure there's an opportunity, and it's not an oversaturated market. Like you don't see us sitting here saying, oh, we want to scale our coaching company to multi-millions, which it already is there. But like I'm saying 8 figures. No, it's part of our journey, and it's part of what we want to do, and it's part of our overall income. But we're really focusing on the agency side.
Yeah.
It's not scalable because everybody wants me to coach them. So I coach 10 people. That's it. Like that's all I coach. And right now I don't want to take more on because we're focused on the agency side. So it's just not part of our plan because it's a saturated market. Now there's no program like ours. There's very few coaches that have our level of experience, and you see our students, and they'll tell you the same thing, right? So look, right? I would never have given up on you, Natasha. But so I'm proud of what we have, but we're not looking. We know we're not looking to scale this to $10 million. Maybe in the future, but we're just not looking for that. So. So you have to make sure that there's a market opportunity. So I would say those are really the main things to really look for if you're trying to scale.
And I think the only thing the bow I would put on that, and you've already kind of said it, is you got to start with the end in mind. What do you want your life to look like when it comes to income, profitability, your work life, what you're doing for a living, the impact you're having, and how you're running it? I was very clear. I didn't want to start what's already created over here and think. I wanted to put myself into a team and partnered up with people that I could have a positive, make a positive contribution and make a difference to help them get where they're trying to go. And as a result, I get where I'm trying to go. And so this has always been me. This is just it's a natural expression of kind of who I've always been. I used to joke about, my 2 brothers are pro athletes. I was a cheerleader. That's just what I do. I'm that person who comes in.
Wait, whoa. You just dropped a bomb on me. You were a cheerleader? Oh, Debbie, this is a problem.
Okay, but
we're gonna have to have an emergency senior leadership meeting.
Wait, let me temper that. I was
my heart just dropped into my
stomach. Whatever. I was competitive dancer. I was in cheer. But here's the other thing. I was the only girl on the boys golf team because they didn't have a girls golf team.
All right, that's pretty cool. All right, your cool meter went a little back up, but we have to talk about that cheerleading thing. No offense to the cheerleaders of the world.
Listen, I will hit you with this. I made now I'm getting really I had a serious back surgery when I was 15 years old. I went to the cheerleading tryouts in a body cast and made the squad. There's no quitting me. There's no quitting me. So
we're going to end that on that because that's pretty badass.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, if you're looking for a coach, if you're looking to scale to the next level, that's what we do. So hit us up. You can go to thinktankcoaching.com, think with a Y, even though I think with the I works too. Or you could just comment. So you could DM me, scale, or you can comment on this post that you're watching, scale, and we'll contact you. And this is what we do. So we scale businesses of all sizes. We're working right now with startups.
Give me a T. Give me another T.
Stop, please. All right. On that note, we're ending this broadcast before she starts cheerleading.
I love it. I love it when I hijack it.
Thanks, everybody, and we will see you soon.